If you work for the Catholic Church and want to transform the culture of your parish and put more souls in the pews, we are here to help. I'm John Kahns, and this is the Catholic Ministry Professionals Podcast, your favorite leadership development podcast for Catholic churches. Each week, you can expect engaging discussions, expert interviews, and actionable advice to help you move Jesus' mission forward in your parish. And today, I am joined by an expert interviewee, Mr. Kevin Losleben. How are you today?
I'm great. How you doing, John?
I'm great. Thanks for being on the podcast. Say, did I
Yeah,
pronounce that correctly?
I didn't even hear what you said.
Can you hear me now?
I, yeah, no, I'm so used to people mispronouncing my name that when they say it, I just kind of roll with it. Like
You
no
go,
matter what they say, I'm like, yeah,
go
Losleben.
eternally.
I don't know if that's what you said, but
It's definitely not what I said.
like back in the day when everyone had landlines, I was so used to like as a kid picking up the phone and like someone would come on the speaker and be like, yeah, hello, I'm looking for Jeffrey. And as soon as they would not know how to pronounce my name, I would just hang up. We're not interested. So I'm just used to it. You're good.
My secret wound there with the landlines is that I would answer the phone as, a preteen boy, and people would think I was my mom. I'm a young man, darn it. That's my secret pain. Well, hey,
Do you
thanks.
should we process that? Should we process that together right now, live?
I just no, I
You want to
just want
work
to
through
shove
that?
it. I want to shove it deep down
Okay.
inside, is where it can condense into a little pit of rage that I'll use to fuel all my endeavors.
Yeah, that sounds healthy.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. Well, hey, thanks again for being on the podcast. I want to give you a
Yeah.
moment. You and I have talked a couple times in the past. I'm a huge fan of the work you do in youth ministry, but I'd love for you to tell our listeners, our Catholic ministry professionals, a little bit about your apostolate. Easy for me to say. Give us the 10,000-foot view. Tell them who Kevin is and
Yep.
what it is that you do.
Great. Yeah. So Rural Catholic Youth Ministry is the name of my apostolate. The name kind of says it all. So really our goal is to help rural parishes get youth ministry programs going. So that's a kind of a pain point for rural parishes. They have lots of different reasons that they don't have a youth group going or any kind of youth ministry going. So my main offerings are a 10 video course that can kind of take anyone from someone who doesn't know really much of anything about youth ministry to feeling like they are confident enough to start and even sustain a youth group. And that second part, kind of sustaining a youth group, is the second pain point that rural parishes often find, is that they maybe started a youth group, but it's really hard for them to keep it going. So then my other offering is an online community specifically for people who are doing youth ministry in rural parishes. So just giving them support through that. We have different membership tiers within that community. In the top tier, I provide coaching there. They have really just kind of direct access to me. And my hope is that we can set a fire of youth ministry across rural America. Like I want to see rural parishes with thriving youth ministry programs, because I think that they have a gift that they can offer the church through kind of the smallness that often comes with rural youth ministry. So yeah, that's kind of like the main gist of what I'm going for. I left my diocesan job. I was the director of youth ministry for the Diocese of New Ulm, which they would always tell they're the America's most rural diocese, which some people would scoff at. It's just like our biggest town was Wilmer, so we had like 19,000 people. So that was their claim. I'm pretty sure there's more rural dioceses in the U.S. But so yeah, I just kind of like looking at the landscape there when I was at the diocese and hearing whether it was like a DRE or just a faithful parishioner or priests, different people that they wanted to start youth groups, but they oftentimes just didn't feel confident. So they felt called, but not confident. So that's why RCYM 101, this course that I'm offering, is called Equip the Call. Because the whole idea is like, okay, if you feel called to do youth ministry, we'll equip that call. We'll help you to feel confident so you can jump into it and at least like relatively feel like you know what you're doing. I mean, obviously with youth ministry, you're always a little bit like, what are we doing here? But yeah, so that's kind of the 10,000-foot view, just trying to get rural parishes with youth ministry. So
Who's that course good for? Is that like if you're a parish staff member, or you're the priest and there's nobody else, or is it
yeah.
like there's just a lay person that's going to a retreat and has a little fire in their heart and they want to give in this way? Who's it kind of designed for?
I might eat my words in saying this, but anyone, like genuinely, I have seen so many people of just different stripes be successful in youth ministry. And that was kind of that was part of the impetus in making that course was like, so that one of my best friends is a choir director and just really into sacred music. And he didn't really grow up with much youth ministry in his own life, but I saw him just flourish. I kind of brought him into my youth ministry programs and just saw him flourish. I've seen empty nesters who just have a way of connecting with the youth, but didn't feel, I think a lot of people feel kind of intimidated by youth, or they don't feel like they have gifts. And but I'd see that even those people do really, really well. And so just seeing like all these different people. Oh, another one that I'm thinking of, a former pastor of mine who was an older priest, and I kind of roped him into the youth group. We had a younger associate pastor who was helping me, and then he got reassigned. And so I was like, "Hey, Monsignor, let's go. We need a priest here, you know." And he's like, "Oh, okay, well, you lead it." And I just saw him flourish, and it really breathed new life, I think, into his priesthood. So honestly, like I said, I might eat my words here because I don't know who's going to get put through this course, but I think anyone can take it and feel pretty confident going into youth ministry. And not only that, but I think I think a variety of people have gifts to offer within youth ministry, because really, like, youth nowadays, they just want authenticity. And we've been saying that for years, but it's just true. Like they want people who are, they are who they are, and they don't really try to pretend to be anyone else. So just like, if you feel called to do youth ministry, take the course. And I think you're going to find that actually, hey, whether it be my age or my state in life or my life experience, whatever, I have something that can lead youth to Christ. So,
I've often said on the podcast, I think we did a series on this a while back, but people have a tendency to underestimate the potential that's there in the rural setting. And I grew up in a rural setting, and we didn't offer a whole lot. There just wasn't a lot available, and especially when I was growing up, we didn't have smartphones or anything, so you didn't have
right.
any competition if you started youth ministry. It was the thing that we had. So there's
Yeah.
potential there, and even you look at Sherry Waddell's thresholds of conversion. That first threshold is trust, and in a small community, you already know each other on at least a base level. That threshold, like, people are already on the edge of it, and so you've got a lot of things working for you. The word sustainable came out of that for me, because I think a lot of times what happens is somebody has a little fire in their belly, they try to get something started, and then they find that they feel like they're doing it all alone. This leads to burnout, and 15 years later, they're still the only one running it, and they're ready to be done, and there's nothing there to sustain it. So I'm kind of curious, like, what are the elements? Like, what are the, I guess, the core pieces of your framework that keep that momentum, that allows it to be sustainable, that helps to prevent people from burning out in 3, 5, 10 years?
Yeah. No, that's a pain point, right? I mean, it's so common, especially in youth ministry, and I think especially rural youth ministry, because yeah, there's no one around doing it, and so you can feel kind of isolated. So within the course itself, I try to address that, and we have a it's one of the things that I really focus on, which is that, like, the one of the keys of having a youth group period, I think, but especially in a rural parish, is just being consistent. So within the course itself, I try to bake in different principles that are going to help them have a more sustainable youth group. And one of the biggest things is making your youth group simple. So one of the things that I find a lot is you get someone who's super excited. They're super gung ho. They want to do this youth group. They're so pumped. They have all these great ideas, and that's good. Like, you should have that zeal. But the plan they come up with is like, we're gonna make a meal every time we get together and have a movie night, and then we're gonna bring in a guest speaker every week. And it becomes this really elaborate thing. And within a month, it's toast, right? Like, they're tired. And then what it kind of does is it sets up like this precedence for the kids kind of expect that. Like, we're gonna show up to youth group and get, the premier treatment. It's like, there's no way you can keep that up. And so I've seen that a million times. So kind of baking into the course different principles of like, okay, great that you have that zeal, but you won't be able to sustain that. So kind of my little, and I'm glad you brought up this phrase, simple and sustainable. That's kind of my phrase. You got to keep your youth group simple and sustainable. So, and those kind of work in tandem. If it's simple, it's going to be sustainable, right? And then also, like, always to have the foresight of like, okay, if I want this youth group to last a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, will I be able to sustain this particular model that I'm going down? Right. And so just to have kind of the vision. So within the course, I try to kind of lay that out. Like you got to have vision for long term here, not just kind of, it's exciting, let's start a youth group. But then that's also why I have the community. So giving people extra resources within the kind of the top tier, the dedicated membership of that community, I will write their youth group plans for them. So if they're a dedicated member of Bosco's Garage, that's the name of my online community, then I'm literally writing their youth group plans because I just know like I've been a volunteer youth minister. And it's like, oh shoot, it's Wednesday night. And I'm like, this is me. Like I was director of youth ministry and then doing a volunteer youth ministry or youth group on the side. Like it's Wednesday and I didn't think about my youth group. What are we gonna do? So you're texting the other person you're leading it with, like, hey, what's the plan tonight? Well, what if someone just wrote those plans for you? So you look at them briefly before you go into the youth group, but otherwise, like you just kind of show up and you be the youth minister. And then even those plans that I'm writing are simple. I mean, if someone saw them, they'd be like, wait a second, that's your premier offering? Like, yeah, because you could write that, right? Like literally, it's no more complicated than you show up, you play some games, you have like a snack, highs and lows, talk about your highs and lows for the week, how's God working in between, and then show like a couple YouTube videos, talk about the YouTube videos, small group prayer, you're done. And so it's like, it doesn't have to be more than that. And so, yeah, within that online community, just like offering different resources like that, trying to kind of take the burden and the load of honestly running a youth group. Like it's not always easy trying to take that burden off of the people who are running it so that they can do it for years to come. So yeah, kind of like baking it into the course, different principles of sustainability, and then also just offering resources to kind of lighten their load a little bit as they're in the midst of it. So that's kind of my, just as I think about like what would have helped me when I was running like a volunteer youth group or seeing other people doing it, those would have been the things that would have been really helpful. So
Yeah, and I love that because what that seems to allow people to do is, and I guess the thing I would in my head it kind of compares to, in my experience was when I was running a small group and I had no idea what I was doing, so I was just trying to remake myself as the popular youth ministers of the time, and what
yeah,
I found out was I wasn't them, and so the things that I was sharing weren't authentic, and so like if I just tried to recreate Christophonic or Mar Hart's things, it just fell flat because it wasn't me,
right.
versus
Yeah,
when I came back to more of a simple version of the ministry where then I could be free in that to be myself, but still pass on the faith. And that's not to say too, I mean, there's some value to, these groups like Life Teen or something like that, where they have these lesson plans, but even some of those get a little cumbersome.
yeah,
You're talking
yeah,
about a full-blown script that you have to recreate. Now, would you say
right.
it's along those lines or it's a little more, yeah, how would you differentiate that?
Yeah. I mean, I want to be careful because I don't want to like throw anyone under the bus, but even as myself, when I was venturing into, let me just like back up a little bit. So when I was venturing into feeling like the Lord was calling me to start RCYM, Rural Catholic Youth Ministry, one of the things that was in the back of my mind is thinking about the different offerings that are already kind of there. Like you brought up Life Team, and how even for myself as a, quote unquote expert in youth ministry, looking at some resources that were already available and thinking that overwhelms me. Like I'm easily overwhelmed by things. So if that overwhelms me and I know how to do youth ministry, how is someone who like literally has no experience or they've just stepped into it, how are they going to feel? So then yeah, looking at like, okay, well, if I'm going to offer this, it's got to be like you go to the website and you're like, okay, so I take this course and you'll teach me pretty much everything I need to know. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I can't teach you everything. I don't know what's going to happen in your youth group, but like, yeah, it's all going to be there. And then on top of that, yeah, look at these lesson plans. They're super simple. And in my course, I'm teaching you how to kind of run through a typical youth group night. So when you get the lesson plan, you're going to say, oh, this is familiar. This is like the RCYM structure. Yeah, we got like, so one of the little phrases that I use that people may not understand when they look at it, but like is arrival game. Like, what is an arrival game? Well, in the course, I talk about that. Arrival game is like, honestly, my go-to is Foursquare. Like, that's literally how simple it is. play Foursquare. People show up. You can it's one of those, like, rotating games, but something's happening when they get there. It's not just, like, an awkward thing, right? A rival game, and then it's just, like, the schedule just easily boom, 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 rolls through that. It's so simple. I mean, like, it's not fancy, right? There's no, like, really cool graphic design on the thing. It's literally a Google Doc, but that's kind of the point, right? If you look at it and you think, "In a few months, I could probably write these myself." Yeah, good, great. I mean, then my job, I'm actually doing what I'm hoping to do, which is like make you feel equipped enough to be able to write your own youth group plans. Now, granted, that's kind of the point too, is like, but I'll write them for you. So like
Yeah.
don't worry about it. But yeah, that's exactly like I'm glad you brought that up because like I said, I don't want people to feel overwhelmed when they look at something. I think it should be very clear in terms of like what I'm offering and then what they need to do when they show up and it doesn't I think that's the thing, like, going back to that simplicity, like, youth groups don't need to be complicated. They really don't need to be. The Listen, like, the Lord just needs space to work, and when you start a youth group, that's what you're doing. You're just creating space for you as a vessel of the Lord to come into contact with young souls. And so, like, creating a space where conversations can happen is really the point, and that's another thing that I'll talk about in the course too, is you're there to talk to kids. And it's actually that simple, just build relationship and the Lord will just take it from there. And amazing things can happen even just with that very simple mindset.
And I think what I love about that is that it gets to the root of what is needed for the faith to flourish, which is
Yeah.
communion and,
Yep.
probably prayer and some stuff. But communion is catechesis.
Yep.
And communion's more than just catechesis. It's fun. So like, I love your idea of the arrival game too. And I like that
Yeah.
you went with something active as opposed, dude. I don't know about your personal feelings. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But if I have to do two truths and a lie one more time, I'm gonna vomit right on
Yeah.
your shoes. Like I just give me something to do. The kids come in and that like people are already having fun when they arrive, and you haven't even started. That's such a
Right.
different atmosphere than everybody sit down, shut up, and share secrets about yourself. There's two very different things.
Let's not do that. Oh, you hear horror stories of like just the awkward youth group games that people have had to do over the
Oh,
years. And I
man.
just think like, wow, that you can't even do that anymore. Thanks be to God. But yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, I yeah, Foursquare is my game. Can I just rant about Foursquare?
Please tell me more.
Okay. So if you're not familiar with Foursquare, I'm sorry that you didn't have a childhood. But Foursquare, you've got 4 squares and a ball, and you gotta, like, bounce the ball in between, you try to get people out. Anyway, the reason I love Foursquare is, A, it basically never gets old. Like, you could play Foursquare every day of your life, and it never gets old. I would have Totus Tuus missionaries who would play Foursquare, like, as their arrival game because I would train them. They would play Foursquare when the kids arrived, and then after the kids left, just the team itself would play Foursquare some more because, like, it's just so fun because it's one of those things that, like, the better you get at it, the more fun it becomes because you're, like, putting spin on the ball. So, for one, it just never gets old. Like, you can do it every night of your youth group, never gets old. But from a discipleship standpoint, it's pure gold because what's great about Foursquare is you have a line of people who are waiting to get into the Foursquare. And so as you're in line, if you're a youth minister, you're standing next to kids and you can just strike up conversation. But the great part is that conversation has an end in sight. So like at some point they're going to get up to the front of the line and they have to leave. So you're not like stuck in this forever awkward conversation with a middle schooler because we've all been there. And it like there's an end in sight, but then also because there's different people getting out, you end up in line with different people. And so then you can it's like it's automatic mingling, but no one realizes that's what's going on because I hate the word mingling, but that's really what's going on, right? It's like you're getting to know new kids, you can make them feel welcome. Anyone can jump in. It's a simple game to learn. It's I don't know. I feel like Foursquare encapsulates the whole idea of rural Catholic youth ministry, which is just like just talking to kids, making it simple and sustainable. You can do it forever. It's so easy.
There's a T-shirt idea in there somewhere.
Yeah, I like
Foursquare
that.
is youth ministry. You throw it in Chat GPT, it'll come up with a few ideas for you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I like that.
I love that. Hey,
You can also sit on that
can
one.
I ask you another hot button item? The role of sarcasm in youth ministry. Are you pro sarcasm to teens? Or like what's your take on that? It's kind of a hot button topic, kind of a like people have strong opinions on it.
Yeah, they do. They
Because
do.
you
So
talk about authenticity. right?
Yeah.
But then they're like, well, if you're sarcastic to them, are you being mean to them?
Uh-huh.
Or are you speaking their language? Like, what's the
Yeah.
nuance there? How do we play that out? Because people have strong opinions on it.
That's
Maybe that's a
I'm
good conversation for your community.
Yeah, I like that. It's funny. We didn't This was not planned, John, but I love this topic because I've had my own thoughts. Okay, so I'm a naturally sarcastic person.
Mhm.
Um, and one of my good priest friends, actually the one that I was talking about before, he was I kind of roped him into the youth group. He did great, but like I would always say sarcasm is his love language. Like if he's not razzing you, then you should be concerned. Like what bone do you have to pick with me? You haven't teased me in the past week. Like what's going on? So with that being said, yeah, I think there's a fine line. I think sarcasm in some ways can break the ice initially because it actually opens people up, right? Like there's a certain comfort level that you have to have with someone to kind of tease them that way, right? But it can also be a poison if I guess bad analogy, but it's like alcohol, right? So like one beer can kind of open you up a little bit and gets the conversation going because there's a certain like yeah, like okay, we're comfortable with each other, but too much of it and now you're now it's poison, right? And sarcasm kind of becomes that. It's like it actually becomes a barrier then for
Mm.
authentic conversation because then no one takes anything seriously. I've seen that happen, and it's really and it's a really hard hole to dig yourself out of. Yeah, I know this is like a thing where you ask me questions, but what is your input on it?
I guess this is kind of a cop out, probably, but to me, it's a case by case basis, right? Everybody's
Yeah.
different. As an example, my marriage, right? I grew up with three other brothers and then a younger sister. So, like, with four brothers in the house, sarcasm was our love language, right? My
Yeah.
wife, it was four sisters, and so for
Okay.
them, anything like the way okay, I'm gonna get in trouble now, but the way women communicate to each other, like, there's a certain passive aggressiveness that was, at least in their family. Man, I hope she doesn't listen to this episode. But anyway, there's just like, our families communicated differently, where sarcasm for me
Yeah.
is like how we love each other. For her, it's like, it's painful and it hurts. And it doesn't matter, like, how gently or how silly I'm trying to be in it, it just hurts a little bit. So, like, it's something that I have
Yeah.
to learn, like, even though it flows out of me like a river of poisonous water. Like, she doesn't receive it as well as I intended, you know? And
Yeah.
so it's just like, I think there's a case
Yep.
by case basis where, like, you're gonna have the kid, like, to them, it's just I think about football coaches, right? Your football coach can look at you and say, like, "Hey, you screwed this up. You need to stop." Like, that's very direct, it's very blunt, right? You're gonna have different people in your life that if they were to say that to you, it's gonna cut to your heart. So I guess that's my nuance. I guess I would nuance it with saying too, like, maybe humor is a better word than sarcasm. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
like deadpan humor feels a lot like sarcasm. So, where's the line there? But I think it's like anything else. Become like authentic relationship is going to lead you to understanding how you can communicate with each person that you encounter.
Right.
And
Yeah. I don't
probably,
think that's a cop out at all.
yeah, I just think at the end of the day, what you're talking about is authenticity. And so, like, there's people you
Yeah.
can authentically be sarcastic to, and it'll build the relationship. There's others it'll destroy. And probably from the
Mhm.
front of the room, sarcasm is not a good idea. Like, sarcasm
Yeah.
from the front of
Yep.
the room is
Yep.
more likely to hurt than it is to build up, I would say. So there's a lot of nuance.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. And that's kind of that's my take on it usually is when in the moment, you just, it's like a comedian. Like, I'm glad you brought up humor because you got to see how your jokes land. Right. So, like, you say a sarcastic comment to a kid and they just don't take it well. You're like, note to self,
Yeah.
don't
Yeah, yeah.
use sarcasm with John Smith here, you know?
Exactly. And I think that's too dude, I think apologies are underrated too. That you can
Yeah.
never underestimate the power of a public apology. Uh,
Yeah. It's
not
so
not
true.
just not just a blank slate, like, you've got all this stuff on social media where people are apologizing stuff just to save face. I mean, like, if you could tell you hurt someone's feelings, full stop right there and be like, "You know what? I can tell I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry. That wasn't in my intent." Like, just do it. And get it over
Yeah.
with, get it done. Because usually you can tell, "Oh, that didn't land right. Let me just end it right here. Everybody knows this is," like, just, yeah, do the apology.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, parenting the same way,
mm.
just apologizing to your kids when you're a jerk. Like, yeah, it
Yeah.
goes, it's healing. It's honestly
Mhm.
healing.
Well, that's reconciliation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Amen, amen, amen. All right, well, let's get really practical here. I want to get really practical.
Yeah.
Say you've got a very small rural parish. You've got a tired pastor with no volunteer bench, and maybe 6 to 12 teens that you think optimistically you can get. Like, what are the first three steps for these people? Kind of flowing from your course, your community, your coaching, all your experience working people. You're sitting down with this person. What's the first maybe three questions you're going to ask them, or the first three steps you encourage them to take?
Yeah. So like they're not enrolled or anything. They're just like they're considering we want a youth group, but here's our scenario. That's kind of the layout
Yes.
here.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I would say like again, not a cop out answer, but I genuinely mean it. The first thing you need to do is pray. As much as I want every rural parish to have a youth group, it might just be that right now is not the time. And so if you're going into it, and I think we've all experienced this, not that you're ever outside of God's will, right? But like sometimes you start initiatives and things just don't take off and you realize very quickly, like maybe I jumped the gun here. So if you're kind of rushing it or you're trying to force it, it's gonna be tough. It's just gonna be tough. And so really pray about like, okay, step one, can we do a youth group right now? Like, is starting youth ministry a viable option for us? And then as the pastor, if you're the tired pastor, you're thinking about this decision, where are you at with it? Are you willing to make that investment? And then I would say, let's just say answer is yes, but you have no volunteer bench. Okay. Then I think we have to really be honest here. And this is maybe some pointed words here, but how much do we value the future of our parishes? And I really, with rural parishes it's tough, right? I mean, I've heard all the reasons as to why different things are not invested, and it's usually budget related. It's often a volunteer bench issue. But let's just think about it this way. Like, different scenario. So you're a pastor in a rural parish and you have your annual or whatever insurance checkup where the, Catholic Mutual, whoever comes out and they assess your property and they get to your elevator and they say, hey, this elevator is too old and an old person's going to get stuck in it and there could be a fire. And that's bad. So you need to fix that. Okay. So you start doing research. You're like, oh man, this is going to cost $200,000. I don't even know what elevators go for, but it's probably somewhere around there. So what do you do? Like you talk to oh, well, I know that Father Joe just put in a new elevator. I'll talk to him. Hey, who'd you have do this? Oh, I got this guy that comes from the cities and okay, great. Yeah. What's the estimate? $200,000. Oof, $200,000. We got to do it. So what do you say? What's the next step there? You go in front of the parish and you say, we need a new elevator. We can't have old people getting stuck in the elevator. You say it in much better words, but this is why I'm not a priest.
Her name's
Uh,
Ethel. Her name's Ethel on this podcast.
okay, yeah. Ethel got stuck in the actually, this is real. Ethel got stuck in the elevator last week, and we can't have that happen. So we need $200,000. Boom. In 6 months, it's raised because no one wants Ethel getting stuck in the elevator. And now that's great. It's so good. In a year, you've got yourself a really nice, high quality elevator. And then in 15 years, there's no one left in your parish because you didn't invest in the future, right? Like you just invested in the here and now. And that was an important thing. Ethel's really important and the elevator is really important. But like, at the end of the day, our rule, and this is just everyone knows this, so I don't think that I'm poking the bear here. Like our rural parishes are struggling, and so I just like if you were an organization, you're looking at your future. What are you doing? Like, what's your long term plan to make sure that in 20 years there's someone in your pews? So I would say like step two then is if you decide that youth ministry is the thing that you're going to do, then you have to commit yourself to investing in it. Okay, so then part of that step two is you got no volunteer bench. What are you going to, I don't, I find it hard to believe. There are definitely parishes that probably struggle with this to the degree that maybe there's like, they really don't feel, and this is where prayer comes in, right? Like if you're looking at your parish and it's like, no, I mean, really, truly, like we can't start a youth group here. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that every rural parish it's possible to start a youth group in, but I think that most parishes have someone that would be willing to step into the breach and start a youth group, especially if you go to them and you say, hey, we'll give you everything you need. We want this to happen. We're gonna invest in it. So we know a guy, we'll put you through a course. And then after that, even like he's gonna give you coaching and you got this community where people can help you out. I think that that's the step two then is to pray about who is that person. And honestly, maybe it's the pastor. Like I've seen tremendous fruit come from youth groups led by priests. And when you think about it, like if parents are the first educators they're the primary educators of their family, the priest is the primary youth minister. That is his number one job, right? He's the minister, really. He's the ordained minister. And so like he's got to be the guy. So maybe that's him. Step three then is just take my course. Shameless plug.
No, but that's absolutely right though, is like, okay, the main thing that we're dealing with is people have a desire, but don't know how to see it through. The course
Yeah.
solves that problem for them, right?
That's the idea.
Y-
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the person, that hears the teens in their church saying, I come to church, but it doesn't have anything for me. Guess what? If you're the one they're saying it to, you're the solution. And
Amen.
then you get in touch with Kevin here at Rural Catholic Youth Ministry, and he's going to teach you
Yeah.
how to do it. Right,
Yeah.
but that's absolutely, and we had, Fred Schallenbarger, he runs, he's with the Draw Near podcast. You know Fred? So you shake your head. Oh, yeah.
I
Okay.
the last name thing, I just nod my head when I don't
Oh,
know things. Don't like, yeah, huh?
sorry to call you out in
Very
front of all our
Midwestern.
listeners. But he always
Uh,
said that the spiritual is the practical, and I've stolen that line a number of times, and
mm,
I probably owe him royalties for that. But you started with prayer. Absolutely. The spiritual is the practical.
yeah.
Also, the practical is the practical. That's why, like, prayer for you naturally flowed into, kind of the idea from Jesus preaching in the kingdom. Like, which of you, when if confronted with an enemy army, wouldn't, see if with 10,000 you can beat 20,000? Whom of you
Yeah.
among you wishing to build a tower would not first sit down and see if you can afford to build it? Like, you got to count the cost. Those are very practical, but also spiritual discernments that you have to go through. The spiritual is the practical. And then, yeah,
I love that.
okay,
Yeah.
that I think that's all part of it. And so, I love that you started there though, because so many times, we just we don't pray, right? So many youth ministers, it didn't even start as a calling, and particularly in rural parishes, they were just probably an invested layperson that was asked to step into this role. And they maybe thought, well, I don't know, what does it pay? They thought, well, is this something I want to do? But it wasn't a sit down, like, is this the call that's on my life? And I think that that's a necessary component of it as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. I agree. That hence equip the call. That's kind of the idea. It's like, yeah. Yeah, but I think that was one thing that I found to beat a dead horse here, but yeah, people who just they felt called, but they didn't feel confident. And I think that's real. And I think that's okay. It's okay to feel that. I mean, I've been doing youth ministry for 15 years and I still sometimes walk into it thinking like I have no idea what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like what like there's certain different things come up and it's like, well, that's new. Um and I
Yeah.
just like that I'm okay admitting that, I mean, it's part of the deal. I think if you're working with people, that's the way it's going to be. I mean, I feel pretty confident that I can deal with most issues, but it's okay to feel like this is a thing I want to do, but I'm scared, you know.
Yeah, that's another thing that they should get. That's another t-shirt idea right there, is when they graduate from your
Yeah,
course, they get a called and confident t-shirt. There
there
you
you
go.
go.
Or mug. Coffee mugs are good
Yeah.
too.
Oh yeah, coffee mugs. Yeah. What about like a dad hat?
Ooh, I'd take that. I need the
Those are
hats,
super
man.
in right now. Yeah, I love hats.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
so we've talked about a couple of the objections that you hear. Like, give me your
Yep.
your brief response to each of those. Starting with, like, I don't know, start with the top two or three that you hear, and just what your response is to this.
Yeah. Okay, so the number one, I actually in no particular order, but one of the most common ones is that comes to mind is no one's going to show up. And yeah, I just first of all, there are probably kids in your parish. There might be some parishes that really struggle with that. That's fine. But it doesn't matter if one person shows up. I have literally seen I have run youth groups where one kid shows up and those are like really they bear a ton of fruit. And you might think that sounds awkward. It's like not. I mean, part of it is kids they live, especially if they're in a rural parish, they're used to things being a little smaller. Like they show up to different events and it's not going to be a huge crowd. So don't stress about that. But also, I mean, we're following the guy who told us to leave the 99 for the one, right? So like getting caught up in numbers is your first problem if that's what you're worried about. And then also, I mean, yeah, just would you offer mass if one person was showing up? Well, like, yeah, So there are lots of different things that we do in a rural parish where we don't get particularly concerned about numbers. So yeah, drop just numbers can't be I think they're great. It's great if you have a big thriving youth group. That's super fun. But that's not the goal. The goal is actually like Mother Teresa would always say, one soul, one soul. We're focusing on the one person in front of us. So yeah, don't worry about whether or not anyone's going to show up. I think many people who have done rural youth ministry have had nights where actually no one does show up, and that's just the way it is. It's okay. Um, so that would be a big excuse, I guess, that I hear a lot of. I have a story to share with that, so don't let me drop it. But moving on to the other ones, yeah, I'd say like budget is a big one. So they cite budget being a problem, like we don't have enough money to have a youth ministry program. And to which I would just respond, well, you don't need much. I mean, you can run it for free. And then on top of that, like, if we're looking at, well, how are we going to put someone through your course? Like, I'm pretty sure the every parish just about has a Knights of Columbus or some other kind of charitable organization or fraternal group that has money set aside for these kinds of things. So
The
your
the other
diocese might have something too.
the other thing that I would say, ask one family to repurpose
Yeah.
their tithe towards it. One family.
Yeah.
'Cause, most families
Yes.
in rural parishes, yeah, write that one down. But, like, that to me is like, I don't know what you charge, but it's not a $25,000 course, you know?
No.
There's a family that can probably write the check for whatever the course costs, or, if you need to get T-shirts for the mission trip or whatever, the families you would go to say, "Hey, we want
Yeah.
T-shirts. Can you, like, give some for the T-shirts?" Or just
Yeah.
make out a call, ask for the specific thing, and you will be amazed when you ask for this specific thing, how generous people can be.
Especially, I always call it the youth card. When you play the youth card, everyone's hook, line, sinker, right? Like, "Hey, we wanna start a youth group, but we don't quite have the budget." I mean, literally, like, after that mass, you will have the money to do whatever you
Yes.
need to do. People when it comes to investing in the youth, people want to because they see that as not I mean, there's a practical side to that too. So, yeah, I agree, and I think that would be another answer that I would kind of give to that excuse is like, well, are you willing to invest in this, right? I mean, I know I'm thinking of a particular parish that would probably cite budget issues, but was investing a lot of money in something that was bearing almost no fruit. And so really just where are your priorities? And that would be the biggest thing. Like, where are your priorities? So yeah, the budget issue is a big one. I love that idea that you had. That's so genius. Yeah. Another one is the personnel issue. So not feeling like they have anyone who could do it. And that's the course, right? I mean, the idea is like just about anyone can go through this and feel like they know how to run a youth group by the end of it. So really to pray about like who would fit that mold and really kind of like the fundraising thing, right? To kind of get creative with your idea of what fundraising looks like, get creative with what your idea of a youth minister looks like. They don't have to be the recent Steubenville grad who's like super gung ho and right. Like, I mean, they're great, but you're in a rural setting. Like the likelihood of attracting someone like that out to your rural parish, probably pretty slim. But maybe that daily mass goer who is really faithful and is a little more outgoing, like they would be willing to do it. Ask them, right? So yeah, equip the people that you do have for if you feel like you don't have that volunteer bench. Another really big one is we tried that before and it didn't last. This is super, super common. And it's totally understandable. And I will say that in these scenarios, sometimes actually the best thing is to wait. You can kind of get into this rut of like we start and stop a youth group all the time. And when you get into that rut, kids kind of get immune to it. They're just like, oh, another youth group. I'm not interested. So give it some breathing space, let there be some time where there's not a youth group that they always say distance makes the heart grow fonder. So, increase that longing for a youth group and then bring it back and then think about like, okay, how do we move forward? And how do we not make the same mistakes that we made before? Because usually there's a reason the youth group didn't last. Again, that sustainability thing, like why was it that it didn't last? So that would be a big one. I'm just trying to think if you have any that you've heard too. On my
Well,
website, it's funny that you brought this up because you just saw my website this morning, so this was not planned. But like on my website, I have a bunch of pain points that just like scroll through like the excuses that I hear as to why people don't start a youth group, and then the response to those. But those, I would say, like those though are the big four. And
mhm.
also, when I created the course and the community, those were the ones that I was thinking of. How do we create a service that can address these directly in a simple way? And in a way that parishes can step into and you know, feel like they have something that is custom made for their rural setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest advice that I give people when it comes to sustainability, how do we do that? And it's a really simple, I guess, guideline or rule that I would say you put in for whatever. you start is if your kid's in the program, you're in the program. Just plain and simple. I mean, it's for
Yeah.
everything else. Now, it's not going to be 100%, and of course, you're not going to turn anyone away just because mom and dad won't show up if they're
Mhm.
extremely anti whatever you're doing. It's
Yeah.
not like you would do that, but what it does is it kind of sets this expectation, and it creates also an area where mom and dad are more expected to participate, which can then, it puts them in a position to step into their role as the primary educators. That's one of the big things I
Yeah.
encourage people to do is then you're also not saying it's all on my shoulders to make it happen. We are doing this.
Yeah.
So, you get the 3 or 4 parents that are really engaged or really want this to happen. It's like, okay, but if your kid's going to be in this, we need you to be in it too. That's the
Right.
commitment. I don't know how
I
that
like
hits
that.
you. And it's, again, it's not 100%. It's not problem proof too. Cause also, I've done this for like religious ed and stuff, and people don't show up, and then it's like, well, we had to cancel your class because we don't have teachers. It's just
Yeah.
that's the other side of it is you have to be willing to kind of, if that's the I don't know if that's the hill you want to die on, you got to do that too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're onto something. I mean, as you're looking at your volunteer bench, that might be something to consider. Well, who are the kids in my parish? Well, maybe I just start with those parents and say, hey, we want this to happen. Would you be willing to do it? And one thing that I found, I'm a child of the 90s. So, like, back when I was a kid, if your parents showed up to anything, like a youth group or whatever, you're super embarrassed by it. That kids are not that way anymore.
Mhm.
They're actually very responsive to their parents being at things, and it's not an awkward situation. And then that's not speaking for every kid, but just what I found. So yeah, I mean, again, it's like reframing, especially if you haven't been in youth ministry for a while, just to break down those barriers of like, actually, maybe just ask, like you said, ask the parents, and maybe they're willing to step in.
Right. Absolutely. Well, you said you had a story to share about no one showing up.
Yeah, man, I love this story. So you just can't make this up. The Lord is so good, and his timing is perfect. So when I had just started at the Diocese of New Ulm, I it was 2015, and Cathedral High School just down the road had a net team that was there. They were like on campus for I think a year or two, and they left. And so when they left, it kind of created this vacuum where they didn't have, whatever, 10, 15 super dynamic youth ministers on campus all the time. But one of the things that the net team had done at Cathedral High School was they started these men's and women's small groups for every grade. So every grade had a boys and a girls small group. And they would do these during their lunch hour. They could kind of bring their lunch up to a classroom and they would whatever, just it was like a mini youth group. So the Handmaids of the Heart of Jesus, a religious order in New Ulm, they had asked if I would come down and lead the freshman boys small group. And I was like, yeah, youth ministry during the day. This is great. I just literally drive down the hill. I can run a little 15-minute youth group. Totally doable. So they said, great. Why don't you come down and give a little pitch and we'll try to create some excitement. So I did. I went down there during their theology class and I gave a little pitch and I'm like, yeah, Camp Greatness was one of the things that I really built up in our diocese, and it's a boys' camp, and I'm like, I'm the man's man, like, whatever, kid, this is great, like, rah, 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 we're gonna have this awesome men's group. So I did that, and then I went down again to give another promo as the date got closer, and so the day finally came, and, I'm sitting in the classroom, and the bell rings, and I'm waiting for the lunch rush to come up, and, one kid shows up. It's like, "All right, rural ministry, like, it's all right. This is how it goes." So I'm like, "We'll roll with it." So I went along with my plan that I had kinda come up with a little plan for that day, an agenda. That was great. The next week comes along and the bell rings, waiting for the lunch rush, and same kid shows up. I'm like, "All right, great. We're rolling with it?"
Doesn't bother me at
3rd week
all.
in a row. No, I'm good. I'm good. Not feeling insecure at all as the new director of youth ministry. And next week, same thing. Same kid shows up, and so now I'm starting to think like, well, what am I doing wrong, right? Well, and all the lies that come into your head, right? Well, if you were a real youth minister, you would just take your lunch and go sit with them in the lunchroom. You'd go down into the trenches, and there was something about that didn't sit well with me. Like I I just didn't want to do it. And so I didn't. I just kind of stuck with it. We're just going to stick with the plan. And the same kid shows up, and it's December. And I got to the point where like my planning was literally like, let's just find a YouTube video and we're going to watch the YouTube video. Like, I don't, Not that I don't care about this one kid, I do, but I just like I got busy, you know. So I find this Father Mike Schmidt's video about Advent, and in the video, he he poses the question, "What are you doing?" Because Advent's all about making room for Jesus in your life. So what are you doing in your life to make time for Jesus? So this same kid who's been showing up this whole time, one kid, we watched the video and he's eating lunch, and I was like at the teacher's desk, which is where the laptop was to run the projector, and so he was like in front of me. So the video ends. He slowly turns around and he just says, "Yeah, I'm not making enough room for Jesus in my life." And I was like, "Okay, let's talk about that." I said, "Do you pray every day?" He's like, "No." So, okay, well, let's just look at your schedule and figure out when, because the biggest thing, you got to get a prayer life. So I said, your school's attached to a church. So what's your schedule look like after school? Well, I usually have practice. It's at these different times, but there's always a window there where I'm kind of waiting for practice to start, or I'm waiting for my siblings to be done. Okay, great. Well, why don't you just go into church for 15 minutes, and literally all you're going to do is just vent out your day to Jesus. Just tell him everything about your day. So he started doing that. And it was so funny. Then I was in a staff meeting at the chancery, and the vicar general comes in, and I'm just going to leave the kid's name. We'll call him John. And the vicar general, we're just kind of small talking. The vicar general goes, walking through the church, all the lights are off, and there's John sitting in the pew just praying by himself. Like, let's go. So anyway, fast forward, I keep in touch with him a little bit. He was really into baseball, and so like, my attempts to recruit him as a totus tuus missionary in college were failed. He was just too busy. He was like really good. So he actually ended up going pro for a short stint. And so I kind of lost touch with him a little bit. Every once in a while we would connect, but I'm at Camp Greatness. So this is literally this year. And my kid for the first time is going to camp. And so I'm sitting in the back waiting for like the closing ceremony where they give out the awards. And there's this guy standing kind of kitty corner from me. And he looks, just from my vantage point, he looks like a parent that I knew from when I was the director, like a parent of one of the kids. And so that's kind of who I thought it was. Anyway, after the whole thing, this guy comes up to me and, "Hey, Kevin, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, it's been so long since I've seen him that I'm like, my brain is processing who I'm looking at, you know? And then I realize it's this kid, it's this John. And, and he's like, "Yeah, it's been so long." I was like, "I know. How are you doing?" He's like, "Oh man, I have so much to catch you up on." He said, "I guess I'll just start with the big news. I'm going to seminary." And I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah, let's go.
wow." I know, I'm like, wow." He's like, "I just have to tell you, you are a big reason." He's like, "You might be the reason that I'm going." And I was like, he said, "Yeah, because way back freshman year, you started me praying. And it was that kept me on the straight and narrow during times that were really hard." He's like, "I was engaged. I was going professional baseball. Like I had everything lined up, but it was prayer that led me to where I'm at right now." And I went all the way back to that freshman youth group, and like, so anyway, so I ended up catching up. We went out for coffee um, before he left for seminary, and yeah, I mean that's what happened. Like he kind of hit a low point, and he realized he wasn't praying, and he just went back to that time freshman year, and he was like, "Well, step one, if I want to get my life in order, I got to start praying." So he just started praying every day, and he's been faithful to it. Hasn't missed a day.
Mm.
So that's where I like that is the gift. I think that right there is the gift of rural ministry, is that it's automatically small. Like it automatically creates this intimate relational ministry thing that on you talk to any youth minister worth their salt, and they'll say that right there is the goal. So if they have a youth group of 100 kids, great. But if they know what they're doing, they're actually going to break that. They're going to get the biggest volunteer base they've ever had, and they're going to break that large group up into a bunch of small groups, because it's the only way to go forward. And I think in a small parish, you automatically have that. Like you don't have to try for it. Like in a small parish, you literally have built into the system what many youth ministers in a suburban parish would give anything for. And we just have it. So, and I look at that scenario with that kid, and that's it right there. Like one kid showed up. I felt like a total failure in terms of my ability to recruit kids. And now he's, I don't know where the Lord's going to bring him, but right now he's studying to be a priest for our diocese. So like, yeah, vocations crisis. Well, what are you doing to, I mean, where's your pool? Where do vocations come from in terms of demographics? Young men. What are you doing to reach the young men in your parish, right? They serve once on Sunday, and then you talk to them in the sacristy at the end. We need more than that. So that, to me, that story, and when it came right at a time when I was trying to launch this apostolate, trying to set everything up, and that was the shot in the arm that I needed to be like, okay, we're this is the Lord's will, and we need to do this. So
Well, Kevin, I'm sold on it, and I think a lot of our listeners really they can understand that story, and it fits their. If a listener is interested in connecting with you to learn more about rural Catholic youth ministry.
yeah, you broke up a little bit, but I think you asked me where they can find me.
Yes. Yep. Where they can go to find
Yeah.
you.
Yep. So go to ruralcatholicym.com, and everything's laid out there. Like, I tried to make that a simple website. You can kind of see what the course is all about, pricing, the community, all that kind of stuff. I got some free trials in there that you can grab. And then my email is also there as well. You can email me at kevin@ruralcatholicym.com.
Sounds great. All right, dear listeners, visit ruralcatholicym.com to get in touch with Kevin. And of course, we want to thank you for listening to the Catholic Ministry Professionals podcast. If you found today's conversation helpful, don't let it be just another good idea. Text this episode to a friend in ministry and start the conversation today. And you can always visit us at CatholicMinistryProfessionals.com to move from frustration and into renewal. And with that, we'll see you in the vineyard.